Ready? Okay, here we go. Early born, rosy-fingered dawn appeared. That's when the holy fury of Alcinous woke up. And he got out of bed. And he went to gather all the Phaeacians, all the Phaeacians together so that he could introduce them to the stranger who had come now to his house. Now many of the Phaeacians came into the assembly place that they had built down on the shore by the ships, and they wondered as they saw the stranger come amongst them. Now Athena poured divine grace over his head and over his shoulders, made the stranger somehow taller, thicker than ever before, made it so that all the Phaeacians would want to be friends with him, would respect him, think he was clever. So now, when all the Phaeacians were gathered together, that's when Alcinous, the lord of the Phaeacians, began to speak. Hear me now, you Phaeacian chiefs and leaders. Now I'm going to tell you what's in my heart. This man, this stranger, has just wandered into my halls. I don't know who he is. I don't know if he came from the east or from the west, but what I do know is that he's a suppliant, and we all know what that means, don't we? Yeah, we do. He has come as our guest, and he asks for passage. He begs for safe passage. And we know that there has never been a time, not once, when there has been a suppliant in my house who has had to wait too long for a passage home. So come on, let's get a black ship and drag it down into the salt sea. I want 52 of our best young men. Yes, definitely you too. I want you to go down, get the oars in the oarlocks, get that ship ready. Gonna be a black ship that's never been sailed before. Those are my orders for the young men. You're looking very young today. And then you scepter-bearing kings, come back with me to my house. We're going to have a quick feast. The young men can come too. I'm going to provide everything. Help me make friends with this stranger. And you, Herald, go get Demodocus. He is the best singer you have ever heard. I mean, he's amazing. He can sing whatever he wants. So that's what Alcinous said, and all of the Phaeacians went. The scepter-bearing kings followed with him to his house, and the herald went to go and get the singer. And the young men, well, they did as they were told, and they went to get the ship ready by the shore of the barren sea. So now all the Phaeacians came to Alcinous' house. That's when the herald brought back Demodocus, the singer. Now, the Muses loved this man, but they had given him both bad and good. They took his eyes, even as they gave him the sweet song. Now the herald led him in and set up a silver chair for him, took down the clear-voiced lyre from a peg that was hanging over his head, right in the middle of the massive banquet hall, put it in the singer's hands. Set up a golden table next to him with a basket full of food and a golden cup filled with wine so that the singer could take a drink whenever he wanted. That's when all of the banqueters, they put their hands and food to the good food that was in front of them. Except our food is not here yet because there's an Alouettes game. And when they had finished their eating and their drinking, that's when the Muses cued Demodocus, and the song appeared. Now, the song that happened now was a super famous song. Trust me, you all know it. Okay, it's the one where Achilles got in a fight with Odysseus at a divine feast. Yeah, you know this one, right? And they were exchanging violent words, and Agamemnon, who is the Lord of Men, was super happy because he had gone to Apollo at the Pythian oracle and asked when things would be better. And that was when he had heard that whenever the best of the Greeks started to fight, that's when the pain would start to roll down on the Trojans from the Achaeans. You know that song. This song? You all know this song. And the whole time that the singer was singing that song, the stranger wept. Tears soaked his cheeks as they poured from his eyes. He took in his heavy hands a purple cloak, covered up his handsome face because he didn't want any of the Phaeacians to see how he was crying. But then, when there was a pause in Demodocus' song, the stranger said, "Demodocus, it's true what they say. It was either the muse or Apollo himself who taught you how to sing. This song that you've just said, all that you went through, the Achaeans, what they did and what they suffered, everything in perfect order. It was as though you were there, as though you had seen it all. But I wonder, could you sing a different song? Do you know that one, about the wooden horse? You know, the one that Epeius built, that Athena helped with? You know, the one that Odysseus used as a trick to sack the Trojan city? If you could sing that song, if that song you could go through every bit in order, well, then I would be the first of all mortal men to praise your gift as truly divine." That's what the stranger said. And now, once again, the muse inspired the singer, and the song appeared. It started just from that point where the Greeks had burned their tents on the shore, and had gotten into their ships, making as if to go for home. And he sang about how they weren't all going home. No, because many of the young men, they were still in the hollow horse, gathered all around Odysseus, because the gods had fated death and destruction for the Trojans. He sang how now those young men came pouring out of their hollow ambush point, how they went through the city, sacking and ransacking. He sang especially about Odysseus and war-loving Menelaus when they went to the house of Deiphobus, and that was where the bloodiest battle started. And of course, Odysseus won with the help of Athena. So the singer sang, and the whole time that he was singing, the stranger wept, pouring tears from his eyes. The stranger wept now like a widow. Like when you see a widow who throws herself over the body of her husband as he dies, her husband who has died defending all of their children in their city. And as she wraps herself around his body, the enemies come and hit her back. Their spear butts drag her away to the harsh work where her cheeks waste away with grief. That's now how the stranger wept. But not one of the Phaeacians noticed, except Alcinous, who just happened to be standing right next to him and could hear that he was sobbing. And so Alcinous, illustrious among all men, spoke, "Hear me now, Phaeacian leaders and chiefs." Yeah, that's right, Demodocus. Stop that clear-sounding liar. Stop singing. I don't think everybody's having a good time. Okay? We need to have a good, we all came here to have a good time, right? We are here for this stranger, to give him gifts, to give him a safe passage home, to have some fun. But ever since we started dinner, we will start dinner. Ever since we started dinner and the singer started to sing, this stranger has been crying his eyes out. So we need to change things up. We need to find something that we can all have fun with, both stranger lovers and stranger alike. Now, stranger, I also want you to tell me something. Don't hold back, please. What's your name? You know, the name that your mom and dad gave you when you were born, the name they call you in your city, the name that they call you in the city next to yours. We've all got a name, right? You're not anonymous, no? The first thing that your parents do when you're born, they just give you a name, right? Then I want you to tell us where you're from, what's your city, who are your people? We need to know everything so that our ships can take you home, because our ships, they don't have navigators, they don't have rudders, They just have minds and thoughts like men, and they know all of the rich meadows and the fat lands of men, and they go across the wide gulf of the sea clothed in cloud and mist, never fearing pain or death. And then I also want to know, when you were blown off course to my house, what were all those other places you went to first? I want to know, what kind of people were there? Were they harsh? Were they barbaric? Were they unjust? Or were they stranger lovers? Yeah, we love strangers. Did they have minds that feared God? Tell me everything. And finally, I want to know why you keep crying when you hear about Troy. Now, we all know that the gods made it the fate of the Trojan people to die. That's why we get to hear these great songs. But maybe you lost some kinsman there. Maybe it was a brother-in-law or a father-in-law. Maybe it was someone even closer, like a buddy. It's really handsome. You know when you have a really handsome buddy and they're even closer to you than a brother? Did you lose your buddy? And the stranger answered, Alcinous, leader among men, you are right when you say that the most delightful thing that we can do is have a feast. And I myself can think of nothing better than when all of the people are sitting in their rows listening to a singer like this, drinking the red wine poured from golden cups, when happiness takes a hold of the whole hall. What could be better? But you ask me now to talk about my troubles and ask me why I cry, but when I tell you about my troubles, I'm not sure that I won't cry more. Where do I start and where do I end? Zeus has given me so many pains. I suppose the first thing I should say is my name, just in case you ever wander to my halls, even though I live far away, and become my guest. I am Odysseus, son of Laertes. I'm pretty famous, especially for my tricks. And I come from Ithaca. Ithaca is one of several islands that are settled, Dulichion and Same, wooded Zakynthos. Ithaca lays furthest to the west, to the dusk. It's low-lying, it's a rugged place, but it was a great place to grow up. Now I can hardly think of any sweeter sight than that of home. But Calypso, at Ogygia, she kept me from home, kept me in her hollow caves for a long time. I mean, she wanted me for her husband. Circe, too, shining among goddesses, wanted me for her husband, kept me from home. But you know, even if you're in a really nice place, when you're far from your home, far from your parents, it's just not the same, is it? But I will tell you about our awful homecoming, everything that Zeus planned for us. First, when we left Troy, we were blown off course to the land of the Ciconians, to Ismarus. I sacked the city. I killed the people. We took most of their wives and most of their belongings. I divvied it up so that it was fair. Every man had their fair share. I thought that we should leave. Told all my men, hey, we've got quite a lot of stuff here. Let's get out of here on the fast foot. The fools, they did not listen to me. No, they wanted to eat the endless meat, drink the red wine all day long. So what happened? Well, at night came and they passed out on the shore of the sea. And then dawn came. And other Ciconians appeared. These were better, more warlike, and there were so many of them now, they were like leaves, blooms in springtime. And these, they knew how to fight. They knew how to fight from horseback. They knew how to fight on foot if they had to. Now Zeus sent real pain upon us because we started a huge battle down by our ships. We were throwing the bronze spears at one another. We Greeks, we were holding off all the Ciconians, even though there were far more of them. All morning long as the sun was going up in the sky, we held our own. But then, when the sun started to turn towards the time when you tie up the cattle, that's when the Ciconians turned things around. That's when they started to beat us down. I lost 6 men from every one of my ships. I had 12 ships. All of them died there on the beaches. We were lucky to make it back to our ships. But when we got to the ships, they wouldn't move. Not until we called out the name of each one of our dead companions 3 times did the wind finally come. And what kind of wind was it? Zeus sent a maelstrom. He sent a hurricane. Now the winds blew so strong that they would have torn apart our sails into 3 or 4 pieces. We had to take them inside of the ship. We had to put down our mast. Now darkness came over land and sea. It was as though it was night. We rowed for land as hard as we could for 2 days, 2 nights. But then on the 3rd morning, dawn, with her beautiful braids, appeared with a good wind. We set our mast up, put out our white sails, once again set sail. But just as we were rounding the Malaran Cape, just then we were almost home. We could almost see Ithaca. That's when Boreas, the north wind, came, blew us back off course. 9 days and 9 nights. Everywhere we were hit by violent storms. And then, on the 10th day, we finally landed at the land of the Lotus Eaters. They eat flowers. Flowers. I ordered my men to drop their ships. We got some water, we had dinner, and then I sent 2 of them and a herald to go and hang out with the Lotus Eaters. See what kind of men these were among all men who eat bread, because the rest of us eat bread, right? Well, the Lotus Eaters, it's not that they wanted to hurt my men, they just wanted them to eat the lotus all day long. But the fruit of the lotus makes you forget. These men didn't want to come back and report to their captain. These men didn't want to go home to Ithaca. They didn't want to do anything. So I had to grab them and drag them, kicking and screaming, back to the boat. I had to tie them up into their benches. I had to order all of my other men back onto the boat as fast as possible. I did not want them to eat the fruit of the lotus, did not want them to forget about going home. And so we finally set sail. The next place we arrived was the land of the Cyclops. Now, the Cyclops are violent people. These are people who just live in caves. They only look after their own families. They don't have customs or laws. They don't care about anyone else in their community. They don't even plant or plow. They just have wheat and barley and grapes that produce red wine that they just let Zeus's storms make them grow. Now, not far from the land of the Cyclops, there's an island, a good island, fertile island. It's got a good harbor that could easily be used. All things there grow in season, but there's no one there. The Cyclops have never been there. They don't have ships. They don't know how to build ships. They don't go anywhere, these Cyclops. And so this island, it was just full of goats. The nymphs were good to us. They drove the goats towards us. So what did we do? Well, we got our goat spears. We killed the goats. Each one of my ships getting 9 goats. And I got 10. Because I'm Odysseus. Here's our goat food now. All day long, we ate the endless meat and we drank the red wine. But I was looking over at the Cyclops land. I could see a little bit of smoke. We could hear the bleating of sheep and goats. And so, after we had finished eating and drinking, we went to sleep by the shore of the sea. But when early-born rosy-fingered dawn appeared, that's when I gathered my men. I'm going to take my ship and my men, and we're going to go see who's on this land, see what kind of man they are. So I went. I took my ship. We rowed not too far. We got to the shore of the Cyclops land, and that's where I chose out my 12 best men. And I also took with me a huge goat sack full of wine. Now, this wine was the best wine. I had gotten it when I sacked the Caconians. There was this priest, Marin, who begged me for his life because he was a priest of Apollo, so I protected him and his family, and he gave me this wine along with many other gifts. He gave me 7 talents of well-worked gold and a solid silver cup, and this wine that you had to mix 20 cups of water with 1 cup of wine. I mean, not even his servants knew about it. It was just him and his wife and his head servants. The sweet smell that it gave made it irresistible to all people. So I took the wine too with my guys, just in case. There on the edge of the Cyclops land was a cave. Now this cave was huge, and next to it was a rough-hewn courtyard that had been built of massive pines and leafy oaks and boulders. Whoever lived in this cave was a huge man. Someone who just shepherded alone by himself, who never mixed with others. He was a bit odd, stood out because of how huge he was. You know, he was more like that one lonely peak of the mountains that sticks out from all the others. More like that than one of us, guys who eat bread. As we went into his cave, we could see he was not there. So we looked around. We wanted to see what he had in there. Some food. All around were woven baskets full of cheese. And there were pails full of milk. And then there were little goats and sheep, all in perfect order. Here were the yearlings. Here were the slightly older animals. Here were the newborns, the little dewdrops. It was all quite lovely, actually. My men tried to convince me. They said, let's just take the cheese, get some of these goats and sheep. I was not convinced. I wanted to see who this guy was. I wanted to see if he was going to give me a guest gift. It would have been better if I had listened. What happened next was not so lovely for my men. We lit a fire, we made sacrifices, we helped ourselves to the cheese. And it was good cheese. I mean, and we ate, and we ate, and we waited, and we waited. And we waited. And then at dawn, he appeared. He came in carrying massive tree trunks as logs for his firewood, and he threw them down into the middle of the cave with such a ruckus that we all ran into the corner, terrified. And then he led in all of his flock, all those sheep and goat that needed to be milked. He let the billy goats and the rams outside in the courtyard. That's when he rolled the stone of the cave closed. The stone. If you had had 22 four-wheeled, well-made wagons, you couldn't have pulled this stone away. We were stuck. Then the Cyclops began to milk all the sheep and all the goats, everyone in perfect order, put the young under each, and put them back into their pens. And he lit a fire. And that's when he saw us. Strangers! Who are you? Have you come here with a purpose, or have you wandered here across the waterways? Are you like pirates? Those men that go everywhere, doing harm to foreigners. The size of him and the voice of him was terrifying. But I said, "We are Greeks. We have come from Troy. We are trying to make it home, but Zeus has other plans. We boast to be the men of Agamemnon, he who is the most famous man ever, because of the size of the city that he sacked, because of the number of people that he killed. Now we have come to your knees as a suppliant, so come. Do what you are supposed to do with a suppliant. Give us a gift, a guest gift, any kind of gift, really. Honor the gods. Honor Zeus, who protects suppliants most of all. Give us a gift." And the Cyclops answered with cruel words, "Strangers, you will never tell me who to respect. I will not respect Zeus and the other gods. We are Cyclops. We are better than the gods. If I ever do anything that you have suggested, it will be because my own heart orders me to. But tell me, where's your ship? Is it close by?" Now, I saw right through him. And I said, "Oh, our ship, it's been destroyed. These are the only survivors. Poseidon hit us with a storm, so we lost our ship. The wreckage was blown out to sea, wind and waves." That's what I said. But his cruel response was to take 2 of my men, throw them to the ground, dashing them to the ground like puppies so that their brains splattered all over the floor. And then he took them and cut them limb for limb, preparing them for dinner. He ate them like a lion in the mountains eats flesh and skin, bone and marrow. All we could do was watch, helpless. And then he washed down the man flesh with unmixed milk and laid down among the flocks in the cave. That was when I had to decide what to do. I thought about grabbing my sharp sword from beside my thigh. I thought about trying to get him straight in the guts that holds life. But if I killed him, I would kill us too. That stone was still there. We could not move it. And so, as angry as we were over what had happened to our friends, all we could do was wait for the dawn. Dawn came. He woke up. Right away went about milking all the animals, each one in order, as efficient as ever. And then he took 2 more of my men and made them for breakfast. And then he led his flocks out of the cave, moving that doorstone and putting it back like one of us puts a lid on a quiver. Could hear him whistling loudly as he went up the mountains with his flocks. That's when I had to decide what to do. I had to think of something. If Athena would give us the glory granted to us to pay this man back for what he had done to our friends. That's when I got the best idea. You see, there was this olive tree trunk. It was laid out all across the floor of the cave. It was huge. My guys and me, we figured it would have been a mast for a 20-oared freighter. It was still green because the Cyclops was drying it out so that he could carry it as a club. Now I took it and I cut a fathom's worth off, and I gave it to my guys to strip and to sharpen one end of the point. And I took that one end of the point and I put it in the fire to harden the point. And then we took it and we hid it in a pile of sheep shit, because there was sheep shit everywhere. Then we drew lots. 4 of my best men, the guys I would have chosen myself, they drew the lots to help me raise the stake when the time came. And we waited. Evening came, and he came back. Rolling away the doorstone, he led in, this time, all of his flocks. I don't know if it was the god that inspired him. I don't know if he had a hunch that something was happening. I don't know. But now, all those billy goats and rams came in, along with all the animals that needed to be milked. He milked all the animals, each one in order, putting the young under each one, as efficient as ever. And then he took 2 more of my men, made them for dinner. That was when I got out the wine. Poured it into a wooden cup, one of his primitive cups. And I said, Cyclops, why don't you try this red wine we brought? It's really good. We brought it in our ship as a libation that we would pour for you if you would send us on our way, if you would help us, as suppliants are supposed to get help. I don't know how you would ever have another guest the way that you treat guests now. And he took it. He took the wine. And he said, stranger, tell me your name so that I can give you a guest gift. And also, give me some more of this wine. We have grapes that grow here, but drinking this wine, this is like ambrosia. This is nectar. That's what he said. So, 1, 2, 3 more times I gave him the wine, and 3 more times he drank, so that the wine wrapped itself around the Cyclops' thoughts. And that was when I answered, Cyclops, you want to know my name? My name's No One. My parents, they named me No One. My friends, they all call me No One. That's when his cruel response came. Well, No One, here's your guest gift. I will eat you last of all and all your friends in front of you. That's what he said, and he passed out. He was so drunk he fell backwards, his huge head lolling on his thick neck as he belched up bits of wine and man flesh. And then sleep who conquers all, took a hold of him. And that's when me and my men sprang into action. We got the stake out from the shit. I took it back to the fire, and I held it in the fire now. Even though that wood was green, I held it until it glowed red hot. Then we held up the stake and approached him. We drove it into his eye. I twisted it. I twisted it like a man drilling a piece of timber when he's building a boat. And the fire, the end of that stake was so hot that it singed his eyebrow, that it burned the root of the eye, that it made the whole eyeball boil and crackle. The sound that came now was like when a blacksmith takes new forged steel and puts it into cold water. That's how it sizzled, and the blood flowed warm all around it. And boy, did he scream. He screamed so loud, the sound of it echoing off the walls and the floor of the cave. We ran back as he threw the stake from his eye, terrified. But the sound of his screams went up into the mountains, and the other Cyclops came. Polyphemus! Why are you yelling like that all through the ambrosial night? Did someone steal your flocks? Is someone trying to kill you? And Polyphemus answered, no one is killing me! So they answered him, oh, well, if nobody's killing you, then you must just be sick, so pray to the gods and they'll make you better. And they went away again. That no one thing really worked. And then he rolled around on the floor with pains now that are harder than a woman giving birth. He screamed and cried, but finally he rolled back the entrance to the cave and he stood in front of it, moving his hands so that he could feel any man who might escape. What an idiot. He thought I would fall for that. I already had the best plan. And this one took every ounce of cunning that I have, every trickiness that's deep down in my soul. You see, he had brought in those billy goats and those rams, and these rams, they were magnificent, let me tell you. So I took 3 of them, and I tied them together with willow rope, had them huge all together so that I could put one of my men under the middle of each, and the Cyclops would never be able to feel him out. And then there was this one ram, this one massive, magnificent beast, had fleece that was dark like a flower, like a dark flower. I grabbed a hold of that ram and I held tight. So I watched as all my other men made it through the Cyclops' arms. But then the Cyclops felt the huge ram last of all. And he said, Ram, why are you, my dearest ram, the last of all today? Normally you were the first to go out to the streams, first to go out to pasture. Is it because you are sad about your master's eye? Oh, if only you could talk. If only you had a mind like mine, then you could tell me where no one was hiding. Then I could find him and dash his brains to the ground and pay him back for all the pain that he has given me. That's what he said. And he let the ram go. So we escaped. We got just a little way away from the cave, and I jumped off my ram, cut all my other men free, and then, of course, we took the sheep. Took them all, loaded them up onto our boat, and we set sail. Now, as we rowed away from the land of the Cyclops, we got just far enough away that you can still hear a shout. And that's when I said, hey, Cyclops, you know, it wasn't some puny weakling guy, whose friends you ate. You who dare to eat your guests against Zeus's will. That's what I said. That pissed him off even more. So he took the top of a mountain, broke it off, and he threw it at our ship. It went whirling through the sky as it came at us. It almost hit us. It hit right behind us, almost broke the rudder. But the wave that came up from the rock pushed us right back to the land of the Cyclops. So I got a really big stick, and I pushed us, shoved us off again, and my men, they were rowing like mad. And when we got twice as far this time, I was about to shout. My men were like, what are you doing? Why are you trying to provoke this wild man? You know, he could hit our boat. He could smash all of our skulls and break our ship to pieces. I was not convinced. So I said, hey, Cyclops, you know, if anyone asks where that ugly blind eye of yours came from, you tell them it was Odysseus from Ithaca. The cry that came from him then when he realized, Odysseus, he said. You know, we had this prophet who was always telling us, he was always walking back and forth among the Cyclops, and he always told me that some guy was going to come and take my eye, but you know, I really thought he would be taller and better looking. But now I'm going to pray. I'm going to pray to Poseidon, who happens to be my dad, and he's going to heal my eye, and it'll be fine. And I said back, I couldn't help myself, Cyclops, you're going to go to Hades before that eye will ever be healed. That's when he prayed. And he prayed to Poseidon. He said, Poseidon, if you really are my dad, if it's true, then pay back this Odysseus. Make sure that he never makes it home. And if he does make it home, make sure that he makes it home awfully late on somebody else's ship with all his men dead, where he will find pains in his halls. That's what he said, and now he grabbed a rock. I can't even tell you how big this rock was, and it came whirling out at our ship, and it almost broke off our rudder. But the wave that came from that rock, it just washed us right back onto that little island. You know, that island where all the rest of my guys were? So that was good. We took all of the Cyclops sheep off of our boat. We divvied it up. I wanted to make sure everyone had their fair share. And then I ordered my men to get into their ships. Ordered them now to cut those stern tables. Ordered them to all get onto their rows and put their oars to the gray sea. And now we can have food. Bronze, and it has sheer cliff faces. The whole floating island is ringed in clouds. There, that's where Iolaus lives with his 12 sons and daughters. He's got 6 of each, so he married them to each other. That way everyone can just always hang out in their parents' house, feasting, and it's really nice. All day long they have sacrifices that the smoke goes up from, and all night long all of the men next to their respectful wives on really nice beds with blankets. So there we stayed. Iolaus took us in, greeted us as guests. He kept us there for a month. I told him all the stories about what had happened at Troy. I told him all about our attempts to get home. For 1 month, we ate the endless meat and drank the red wine, and then finally I asked Iolaus to send us on our way, and he said yes. And he gave me a great gift. You see, Iolaus is the master of the winds. The gods have given him the powers to even stop or start the winds, and so now he gave me a sack of wind. This sack was so big it was made out of a 9-year-old oxen. And I took that sack and tied it up on our ship. Tied it tight with a silver shining cord so that not even a little bit of that wind would escape. And then Iolaus, he said to the western wind behind us, Zephyros, so that we could make it home. 9 days and 9 nights. Now we sailed straight towards Ithaca. We got so close I could see the men there tending the fires. That's when I fell asleep. Now listen, I had been trimming the sheet for 9 days. I didn't let anybody else touch it. I thought I could get us home fastest. For 9 days and nights, I had trimmed that sail. So I fell asleep. That's when my guys start complaining to one another about all the things that they think I have that they don't. One would say to another, oh, this Odysseus. Everywhere he goes, people just love him, they honor him, they give him so much. You know, from Troy, he's got all the best treasures. Even though we've been through everything that he's been through, we're coming home empty-handed. Now this guy Iolaus gave him a huge bag. So why don't we open it up? See how much silver and gold is inside. The dumbasses. So they opened up the bag. Right away, a storm came down on us like we've never seen. Such a squall, it blew us all the way sideways, out into the open sea. That's when I woke up, saw the conditions that we were in. And for a minute, I had to think whether I should stop and stay among the living, or whether I should just throw myself off the boat into the sea and die. I decided to stay, to hunker down. So we rowed like mad for shore. Where did we wind up? Right back at the land of Iolaus. So we drew the ship up, had some water, had some dinner, and then me and two of my guys, we went back to the palace of Iolaus. We found them all there, dining in their halls. The sons, the daughters, they were having a great feast, and we stood on the threshold, and they saw us, and they were shocked. Odysseus, what are you doing here? We sent you on your way with every good wind, with every good intention. You should be home by now. And I had to tell them, well, my stupid men did this damage to us while I was asleep, but you can fix it. You can cure this harm. That's when the cruel response came. You need to go. You need to get right out of here as fast as possible. You who are the lowest among all men, because now the gods hate you. Now they have attacked you and sent you back here. You have got to go. So we went back on the boat. I ordered everyone onto the boat, cut the stern lines. Everyone sat in their rows, putting their oars to the gray sea. And we came, after 6 days and 6 nights, to the land of the Lystragonians. Now here, there are rocky cliff faces all around the city, and there's a harbor. This harbor is so good that there's no wind or wave in it. The sea is as calm as glass. Now all of my men put their ships into the harbor, but I tied up my ship outside to the rocks. That's when I went up to a lookout point. I wanted to see where we were, what kind of land we were in. I looked around and I couldn't see anyone, couldn't see any herds of cows, but I saw a line of smoke. So right away I sent 2 of my men and a herald down the smooth wagon way where they brought the wood from the woods, yeah, so that they could make fire in the city. And as they went, they found a girl there, just outside the city walls. And they said to her, "Who is the king in this land? Where does he rule from?" And right away she pointed out the high halls of her father. Antiphates. That's emphatic. Antiphates, who is the lord of the Lystragonians. Now my men went inside this house, and they found a woman there. A woman who was as huge as a mountain. They hated the sight of her. Did not like that at all. And this woman yelled out to her husband, Antiphates, and Antiphates, well, he had something really bad in store for my men. He ate one of them for dinner. The other two of my men, they came running. They made it back safe to the ship, but as they ran, Antiphates yelled after them so that all the Lystragonians came through the whole city running. And these men were not men. These were giants, and each one of them now took a stone, a boulder the size of a man, and threw it down into the harbor. Threw it down on my ships. All we could hear was the sound of the ships breaking, of men dying. And while that was happening, all I could do was cut our stern line and set sail as fast as we could. We were happy to escape death, but we lost many men. All the rest of those ships that were in the harbor were destroyed. Next, my ship came to Aiea. That's where Circe lives. Circe shining among goddesses. We were escorted into the harbor of her island like a god was taking us in. It was perfectly silent. Right away, when we landed, I went up to a lookout point to see what I could see. And all around us, it was just sea. Come in, it's okay. It was just sea and sky. So right then I had to decide, should I go and look closer because I think I see some smoke? Or should I have dinner with my men and send some of them to investigate? I think we should have dinner. So I went back and we divided into two groups of men. I was going to lead one and Eurylachus was going to lead the other. And then we drew lots to see who was going to investigate the smoke. Now, Eurylachus drew the lot, and so he and his men decided to go. And they were crying the whole way. They were weeping. They were thinking about all the things that had happened to my other men, and my own men who were staying, they were crying too. There was a lot of crying going on. Now, as my men made it through the dense woods to Circe's great house, they were immediately attacked by lions and wolves, but these lions and wolves had been ensorcelled by Circe, so they just kind of panted and wagged their tails, you know, like when dogs come up to a good master when he comes home from a feast and they know that he's going to give them a little something. That's how these animals came up to my men now, but they didn't know. These were huge beasts, so they ran terrified into the doorway of the house. That's when they heard a beautiful voice coming from inside. This was Circe's voice. I mean, Circe, she's got a really nice voice. She was singing, sitting at her loom. You know, she makes these clothes, the kind of clothes only a goddess can make. They're light and delicate and shining, and she was singing. Anyway, Eurylachus, he was suspicious. He was like, I'm staying out here. But Polites, one of my most careful guys, he was like, do you hear this voice? I don't know whether it's a goddess or a woman, but why don't we call out and see? So they called out. And Circe opened the shining doors, and she invited my men in. She put them on silver chairs. She mixed cheese and barley and Pramnian wine with green honey and some bad herbs. And my men drank. And then she drew her long wand and turned each one of my men into pigs. Their voices became pigs. They basically just oinked. Their hair became pigs, their head became pigs. The only thing that stayed men's was their minds, which was the same as before. And then she took her wand and she said, "Pigs, go now into your sty." And they went. Now, the only reason I know any of this is because Eurylachus, who had stayed outside, came running back to me and my men. He was very shaken up. He was trembling all over, pouring tears. We all had to beg him to tell us what had happened to the rest of our men. He finally did. And so I got my bow and arrows. I got my sword. I asked him to show me the way to Circe's house. He refused. "No, don't make me go back there. No, we're never going to escape. Circe's going to turn us into pigs. I think we all need to leave right now. I think we need to save these men here." I said, "Eurylachus, if you need to, you can stay here by the boat eating and drinking. That's fine. But I have to go. I'm going." And so I went down the road through the dense woods towards Circe's great house. But before I got there, Hermes appeared with his golden wand. Hermes, who made himself look now like a young man. You know when a young man first gets his beard and he's got kind of peak hotness? You know, that kind of young man. And he said to me, "Odysseus, where do you think that you're going? Like this, through these dark woods? You don't know anything about this place, do you? You think you're going to go to Circe's house? You think you're going to save your men? I don't think so. I think what's going to happen is that you are going to end up staying here with them forever. But I can help. I've got this good herb. The gods call it moly. You're going to take it, and then you're going to go into Circe's house, and Circe is going to make that wine with her bad herbs, and you're going to drink it, and nothing's going to happen. But then, when she draws her long wand, that's when you need to get your sharp sword there, take it out and rush at her as if you were going to kill her. She will be terrified and ask you to sleep with her. But you're not going to, not yet, at least. First, you have to make her swear an oath that she will let go of all of your men and that she will not harm you, especially not while you're naked, unmanned. That's what he said, and he showed me the nature of this herb. It had black roots and a white flower like milk. It was almost impossible to tear out of the earth for men, but for immortals, it was just like, whoop. And so I ate the herb, and Hermes went back up to Mount Olympus, and I went on to Circe's house. When I got to the doorway, I called out, and once again, Circe opened the shining doors. She put out a silver chair for me with a footstool, and she mixed the wine with the bad herbs. And I drank that wine, but nothing happened. And then she drew out her long wand, and that's when I drew my sharp sword and it made as if I was going to kill her. But she just threw herself at my knees, right under my legs, and said, "Who are you? You among all men have been able to resist my herbs. No other man has ever resisted my herbs. Are you Odysseus? You know, Hermes with his golden wand, he told me that Odysseus would come someday. If you are him, put away your sword. Come to bed with me. Then we can mix in sex and love and learn to trust one another." I said, "Circe, How are you going to order me to be nice to you when you have turned my men into pigs? Listen, swear an oath that you will not harm me, not while I'm naked and unmanned. So she swore the oath. And we went to bed. Really nice bed. After, she had these 4 servants come out, these servants that were the nymphs of rivers that poured into wide ocean. The first one came and put linen and purple blankets down on the chairs. The second one came and set up golden tables next to everyone. The third brought out the red wine, really sweet, delicious red wine. The fourth brought out tripods and water and heated up the water until it was exactly to my liking, and I got to have a bath. Oh my God, it had been a long time. And then they rubbed me down with oil. And they gave me a fresh tunic, and they gave me a new cloak. And then one of the servants sat me down at the table, all this good food and drink in front of me. She urged me to eat it, but I would not. I wouldn't touch it. My head was elsewhere. That's when Circe said to me, Odysseus, why now do you sit there eating out your own heart and not touching any of the food or drink? You're not still scared, are you? You know that I won't do you any other harm. I have sworn a great oath upon it. But I said, Circe, now if you really want me to eat and drink, then you will let go of my men. I want to see them here, want to see them with my own eyes. And she listened. She went to the pig pens and brought out all the pigs. She rubbed them down with good herbs, herbs that made all of a sudden the black pig hair go back into their flesh, made their heads change back again to men. They were my guys, and they were even younger and better looking than ever before. They recognized me right away. We all ran together. We were so happy. The cries and lamentations went up to the halls. That's when the goddess took pity on us. She said, Odysseus, now go back to your fast ship. Tell all your other trusted companions to come here. Have them eat and drink. Now, my manly heart didn't need to be convinced. I went straight down to my ship. But there I found my men. They were all lamenting. They looked at me and they said, Odysseus, we are as delighted to see you as any man would be to see Ithaca. But come, tell us, how did all of our other men die? And I was like, no, it's not like that. They're all at Circe's house eating and drinking, and there's enough food for everybody. Come on. And all the rest of the men, they followed me, except Eurylochus. He's like, I don't think that you guys should go back there. I think you need to come and stay here. Don't you remember the Cyclops? That's what he said. Circe's going to turn you all into pigs or lions or wolves or something, so please just don't go. Stay here. Now I really had to think for a minute about whether I should cut off this man's head, even though he was one of my in-laws. But my men, they convinced me. They said, just leave Eurylochus here by the boat. He'll be fine. He can just eat and drink here. We'll all come with you. And so I led on, and they all followed. And Eurylochus came too. He was too scared of getting told off to stay back by the boat. When we arrived back at Circe's house, all my men, they'd had baths too. And they'd gotten that good rub down with the oil, and each one of them had a new tunic and a new cloak. And they were enjoying a wonderful feast. And when they saw my other men, now once again, everyone came together happy. But the cries and lamentations filled the whole halls. And Circe, shining among goddesses, took pity on us. She said, "Men, now I know all that you have suffered over the seas and at the hands of violent men. Now stay here, eat and drink. Now pull that spirit back inside your chest, that one that has withered away. Now you might become as strong again as you were when you first left Ithaca. Now stay and feel joy again." That's what she said. And so we ate. We ate the endless meat, and we drank the red wine. And we ate the endless meat, and we drank the red wine. And we ate the endless meat, and we drank some more red wine. For a year. The months wasted away, the seasons changed, the long days passed. And then my men came up to me and were like, "Odysseus, have you forgotten about the prophecy? Have you forgotten about going home?" I felt that. My heart was convinced, and so all day long we ate the endless meat and drank the red wine. But when night came and all the rest of my men went to sleep and I went to bed with Circe, this gorgeous goddess, I took the goddess by her knees and said, "Circe, do as you promised us now and send us home, all of my men and I. That's what we want in our hearts." And she answered, "Oh, Odysseus, I would never keep you or your men here against your will. But you cannot go home. First you must go to Hades. There you must find the Theban seer Tiresias. He will tell you the way home." Yeah, my heart dropped a little bit when I heard that. I sat down on the edge of the bed, thought about whether or not I could go on living. For a while, I just rolled around on the floor and cried. Finally, I said, "Circe, how are we supposed to get to Hades? You can't just take your black ship there." She answered, "Odysseus, you don't have to worry about anything. All you have to do is take your ship, put up your mast, let your white sails fly. I will send you a good wind along with Boreas. They will drive you to a dark land, a place where Persephone's grove is, where there is a ring of poplars and withering willows. That is where you will get off your ship, where two rivers meet that flow into the Styx. There you will cut a trench 1 cubit by 1 cubit. You will pour libations into the trench, first honeyed milk, then red wine, then water, then sprinkle barley, then promise a heifer that has never had a calf. It is your best heifer in all of Ithaca, for all of the army of the dead. But for Tiresias, a black ram. It has to be completely black. Then, for everyone else, another sheep, another ram. Slaughter them, cut their throats so that the blood flows into the trench. That's when the dead will appear. But send your companions to take the sacrificial victims away. Pray to Persephone and to Hades while you guard the trench with your sword. Do not let any of the dead approach. Not until Tiresias comes and drinks of the blood and tells you your way home, and he will tell it to you without error." That's what she said. And it was then that dawn came. I put on my tunic and my cloak, and Circe put on this white dress that she had made. It was very fine, and put a gold belt around her waist, put a shining veil over her face. And we went down to talk to all my men, to wake them up and tell them, Circe has told us the way. We're not going home. We have to go to Hades. My men cried, not that the crying did them any good. And you know, even when we were leaving Circe's house, we were not able to escape without pain. There was this guy, Elpenor. Okay, he was the youngest of my crew, and he was not, I wouldn't say he was super brave in battle, and he definitely didn't have a lot going on upstairs. And so the whole night previously, when we were all drinking the red wine, he decided he needed some fresh air. So he went up to the roof of Circe's house. He passed out up there. Woke up when we all woke up when he heard us, but he forgot he was on the roof. So he fell off the roof, broke his neck right at the vertebrae. Anyway, it happens. The rest of my men got into the boat, and we loaded things up. We got down to the ship, and Circe, who can move really fast because she's a goddess, she had already gotten the ram and the ewe, all the animals that we needed to sacrifice, and loaded them up, and we set sail. And we had such a good wind behind us that the navigator and the wind drew our course, that good wind from Circe, a good companion, until we arrived at the land of the Chimerians. It was a dark land. It was clothed in mist and fog. The rays of the sun never pierced through. It was night all the time. There we drew our ship ashore, just where Circe had told us, where the two rivers met. And I jumped down, and I cut the trench, 1 cubit by 1 cubit with my sharp sword. And I poured the libations, the honeyed milk, and the red wine, and the water, and sprinkled the barley. I promised the heifer, and then we slaughtered the animals so that their blood drew into the trench. I had my other men take the sacrificial animals aside so that they could pray to Hades, pray to Persephone, but I guarded that trench with my sword. That's when the dead appeared. The whole army of the dead. There were brides, old men who had gone through so much. There were young women who had never known heartache. And there were warriors where you could still see where they were wounded with the bronze. Warriors still wearing the bloody armor. They rushed towards the trench, but I drove them off. That's when I saw Elpenor. So we had left his body just out at Circe's house. We hadn't buried it. We hadn't had a funeral. We had other work we had to do. But now I saw him and I felt terrible. And I said, Elpenor, what are you doing in this dark, dusky land? You got here faster on foot than we did in our black ship. And Elpenor answered me, Odysseus, God-sprung son of Laertes. Yeah, there was a bad god that got me. Mostly too much drinking, though. You know, when you were all partying and I just needed some fresh air. I went up on the roof of Circe's house, and then when I woke up, I forgot I was on the roof, so I fell off the roof. I broke my neck right here at the vertebrae, and you just left me there. Now, do this, what I ask, or I will become a thing of the gods' wrath upon you. I know that you have to go back to Aea when you leave Hades. Take my body. Bury me. Give me full rights. Heap up a burial mound so that any other pathetic man will see it and remember me. And then put my oar at the top of the mound, the oar that I rode with when I was living. That's what he said. And I promised him that that's what I would do. But the whole time I spoke with him, those many words I exchanged, I was keeping him back from the trench. But that's when Tiresias the Theban appeared. And he saw me and he knew me right away. He said, "Odysseus, put your sword away and step away from the trench so that I may drink the blood and speak to you." And so I did. And the Theban seer Tiresias came and drank the blood. And then he spoke. "Home. Odysseus, you want to go home. But the gods, they have other plans. Poseidon is still holding a grudge. It's because of what you did to his son, Polyphemus. But you might still make it back to Ithaca for all that you've been through. It will depend on what happens when you come to the island of the sun's cattle, Thrinacia. There, if you leave his cattle unharmed, then you might still make it back to Ithaca, even though you've been through a lot. But if you harm his cattle, you will make it back very late, with all your men dead on someone else's ship. And you will find pain in your halls. There are men there, men who are wooing your wife, men who are giving her many bridal gifts and eating you out of house and home. You will get your revenge. You will pay them back. And then, long after, you will die, a gentle death that comes from the sea. Your people will prosper. I tell you all this without error." That's what he said. And then he went back amongst all the rest of the dead. I stood my ground, though. I wanted to wait and see if one of the other heroes who had died before me might come and speak to me. But then the whole army of the dead descended upon me. Now green fear seized me. Now I was worried that the Gorgon herself would be sent out of Hades after me, and so I ran.
Break time.
Wow, that's what Odysseus said. Did you know that Odysseus had been talking this whole time? I don't know if you were aware that that was just Odysseus really telling a story. But now among all the Phaeacians, yeah, we're still here. It was Arete who stood up. She's got white arms. She's Alcinous' wife. And she says right away, "What does everybody think of this guy? You know, I mean, the size of him, how he looks. What do you think about these stories that he's been telling? You know, I know that he's really in hard straits, but maybe we can keep him here just a little bit longer. We can give him so many more of our possessions. Surely we can make a better passage for him." That's what she said, and right away Alcinous, who is illustrious among men, said, "Oh yeah, I think we should do exactly what my wife said. I mean, as long as I'm still Alcinous and I'm still ruling these Phaeacians who love their oars, I know you love your oars. I think that we should definitely see if this man will stay just a little bit longer. We can give him more things, right?" That's what Alcinous said. And Odysseus answered him, "Well, Alcinous, you know, there's a time for sleeping and a time for stories. And you just told us that you could make it to the dawn, but you forgot to say that, so you didn't tell us that. But I think that I could tell you a few more stories. If you really want to hear them, I could tell you things that are even more painful than the things I've said so far. I can tell you about the deaths of my men. Where was I? It was when green fear had seized a hold of me because I thought that the Gorgon's head would come out of Hades after me. So we ran to our ship. Everyone loaded on, and we started to row. That's when we made it back to Aiea. We drew up our ship, had water and food, and Circe, she knew that we were back. So she brought us red wine and endless meat. But before we could touch it, we had to do what Elpenor had asked. We went and got his body and went out to the headland that went all the way out into the sea, and there we laid out his body and gave him all funeral rites, burned him in his armor, heaped up a burial mound, put the ore on top of the burial mound so that all could see. And then we went back and feasted. Now, as the sun went down, all my men went to sleep on the shore of the sea, but Circe, she wanted to lay down with me, apart from all of my other men. And so we laid down and we told each other stories. I told her all the things that I had been through. And she answered, Odysseus, all these things that you have been through, but now I will tell you what you will go through next. First, you will come to the island of the Sirens. They have a voice that is beautiful but deadly. Any man who listens to their song will never make it home, will never delight his wife and child making it home, but instead will sit enchanted on stacks of bones and rotting flesh of all the men who came before him to listen to the song of the Sirens. This is what you must do. Take wax and plug all of your men's ears. Do not let any of them listen. Steer past as fast as you can. But if you must listen, have them tie you hand and feet to the mast. And if you beg or order them to let you go, have them tie you even tighter. I like that. Then you will come to another place that I cannot tell you exactly what to do. You will have two choices. Here is where there are two cliff faces that are called the Wandering Rocks. Not even a dove can make it through them safe and sound. There, on the left, a sheer cliff face that goes up into the sky so high that the top is always clothed in cloud and no man can ever see it. And even if you had 20 hands and 20 feet, you could never climb up it. It is so like polished stone. Halfway up that cliff, there is a cave. And in that cave is Scylla. Scylla, who has a voice like a little puppy, but she is a real monster. She has 12 legs that come dangling down into the cave beneath her. And she has 6 long necks. Each one of them has 3 rows of deadly teeth and black death in its mouth. She fishes from that cave, getting up dolphins and dogfish and any other little sea monster that the sea provides. She will take your men, 1 man for each head. Now on the other side there is another cliff, lower lying. There is a massive fig tree, and in its shadow is Charybdis. Charybdis, who whirls round and swallows down the whole sea once a day, no, 3 times a day, and then spits it all back up again. If you go anywhere near there when she is swallowing down the sea or spitting up again, your whole ship will be destroyed. I think it's probably better to lose 6 men than your whole ship. Then you will come to Thrinakia, the land of the island of the sun. This is where he has his herds of cattle. He has 7 herds of 50 cattle each, and these cattle, they never die, but they also never have young. Now, if you leave these animals unharmed, then you will still make it back to Ithaca, though you have been through so much. But if you harm these animals, you will make it back very late, with all your men dead. That's what she said. And then Dawn with her beautiful braids appeared. And so the goddess went away again, but she left us with a lot of meat and red wine. And so we set sail. I ordered all my men on board, cut the stern cables. All the men went up and got into their rows, ready to fucking row. Sorry. Ready to row. And then we struck the gray sea with our oars. Now I told them that Circe had told me about the Sirens. And so all of a sudden the wind died down and things were an eerie calm. That's when my men furled the sails and put them in the ship, and I cut off a huge wheel of wax and took the wax and kneaded it in my hands and used the heat of the sun until I could put it in all of my men's ears. And then I had them tie me, hands and feet to the mast. And then they rowed. Now the Sirens, they knew that we were coming. They were ready with their song, and I could hear it. They said, "Odysseus, you who all men praise, don't you want to come and listen to our song? You know that all men who listen to our song, they know even more when they listen to us. We know all that happened in Troy. We know all that's gone on with the Greeks. We know all that happens on the earth that feeds men." And I wanted to listen. I wanted to listen so bad. I begged my men to let me go. But they just threw themselves on their oars and rowed harder and harder and harder and tied my bonds even tighter. So that finally, when we were free and out of earshot of the Sirens, they took the wax out of their ears and let me go. But that's when we saw the smoke and heard the horrible roar. Now, I had to tell my men what was going to happen. I said, "Men, now something big is coming, but it is not as bad as you think. Remember the Cyclops? Remember how clever I was there? Remember my excellence got us out of that situation? Well, I can tell you that it's going to happen again. This is going to be a day that we are all going to remember. Now, navigator, you especially, you need to steer us towards the left, towards that cliff face. Keep steady. Keep rowing." And they listened, and they threw themselves on their oars as we approached Scylla. I didn't want to tell them about Scylla and Charybdis because that's the easiest way to stop men from rowing, okay? Tell them about a bunch of monsters. No. And so my navigator steered us straight, always towards the left, hugging the cliff face, going right around the boiling waters of Charybdis. But that's when Scylla stuck out her awful heads, and she grabbed 6 of my men, my best men. Their hands and feet were dangling over me as they cried out to me, reaching out, calling my name. It was one of the most pitiful things I ever saw. But then we were through. We had made it. That's when an island appeared off our bow. Now I knew that this was the island of the sun. I told my men, we are not going to stop here. We are going to keep going. Tiresias and Circe warned us about this place. And then Eurymachus, he's like, oh, Odysseus, aren't you such a hard man? We have gone through so much. We are exhausted. We are famished. Can't we just stop here for a little bit and have a tasty supper? I think we deserve a tasty supper. He went on and on about it. All my men were convinced. And so I said, okay, you have forced me, all of you against me. Okay, we'll stop here. But you have to swear that you will not eat anything except the food and the drink that Circe gave us. So they swore. And we pulled in. And it was fine for a while until the storm hit. The storm hit that was so hard we had to pull our ship into a cave just to take shelter. And the storm kept going. For a month, we ate all the endless meat and the red wine that Circe had gave us, and my men were happy, and they didn't touch anything else on the island. But after a month, the hunger started to set in. No one could find any wild game. We tried fishing, we even had little hooks, and there was nothing. So I went apart from all my men, thinking that I would pray to Zeus. I said, Zeus, please, give us some way off this island. What did he give me? Well, he made me fall asleep. And what do you think happened when I fell asleep? Eurymachus says to all the other guys, you know what the worst way to die is, don't you? It's hunger. Starvation, it's the worst way to go. I myself would much rather be cut down. I would rather be even struck down by a god than die of starvation. So all my men listened to him. They went and they got the best of that herd of cattle that was the sun's, that was Helios's cattle, and they brought them in. And they made sacrifices, sure. I mean, they were out of red wine, so they used water, and they didn't have any barley left, so they used leaves, and they promised that we would try to kill some cattle when we got home to make up for it. And they killed the cattle. They slit their throats and skinned them, put them on spits, and that's when I woke up. The smell of it. Oh my God, it smelled so good. But I went down there and I prayed to Zeus right away. Zeus, please forgive me for what my men have done. Please let us get home okay. But you see, Helios had already heard what had happened. Helios had already gone to Zeus, saying, Zeus, have you seen what Odysseus' men have done to my cattle? You know, I really like those cows. Do you know they always make me happy when I leave in the morning? They are the best thing about coming home in the evening. If you do not pay them back for what they've done to my cows, I'm not even going to shine anymore. Not for men, not for gods. I'll go down to Hades. I'll shine for the dead. And so Zeus said, look, Helios, we know about these men eating your cattle, and we are going to pay them back. Don't worry. I myself will strike their ship with lightning. But please, keep shining. Now, I know all this because Calypso told me, because she heard from Hermes. I didn't actually hear what Zeus and Helios said, of course not. But here I was, and I knew that my men had killed the cattle, and it was too late. But there they were, feasting away. And you know, there were evil signs everywhere. The skins that they had taken from the cattle now got up and walked around. The meat that was on their skewers started to moo. But still, the men ate. What else were they going to do? For 6 days and 6 nights, we ate. And then on the 7th day, a good wind finally came. So I ordered my men to get on board. I cut the stern lines, and all the men went on board and got in their rows, and we started to hit the gray sea with our oars. Right away, the storm came. It was so bad that the backstay snapped, the leather pinging as it went, the mast crashing down to the deck. It hit my navigator so that his brain came out of his head, his skull shattered on the deck. And that's when Zeus hit us with his silver lightning, throwing our ship every way. My men, they went in every direction on the waves. They were like seagulls now as they floated, and all I could do was grab hold of the keel. And then I found a bit of the mast, and I tied them together, and I clung for dear life. Where did I start going towards? Right towards Charybdis. I could see as she swirled round, the black sand opening up beneath as she boiled like a cauldron. But just as she was about to suck down, I jumped up and grabbed hold of the fig tree. And I clung there for dear life. And then when she spit it back up, I grabbed a hold of it. And I got away. Happy to have escaped death, but I had lost many men. That's when I washed ashore at Odyssey at Calypso's house, but I mean, you know that story. I already said that, so you know, I mean, you don't want to start repeating yourself when you're telling a good story. It's just better to quit. So that's what Odysseus said. And Alcinous looked at him and said, Odysseus, you know, the way that you have told this story, it's incredible. It's amazing. You've told it like a real storyteller, not like some liar or trickster, not like somebody who goes around telling tall tales that we can't learn anything from. I mean, you're not at all like that. That's amazing. So what do I think we should do? I think we should give you some tripods. I think every one of the, yeah, definitely you. Every one of you here has to give him a tripod and a cauldron. Yeah. We can afford it. Don't worry, we'll raise taxes later. We'll pay ourselves back. And I think that we can afford to send you on your way tomorrow with more things. That's what he said. And so all the Phaeacians, they went home to sleep, finally, and to get their possessions. And when dawn came, every man brought a tripod and a cauldron. And Alcinous himself took them down to the ship and tied them up under the benches so that they wouldn't get in the way when the young men were rowing. And then Alcinous took everyone back to his house. And once again, they had a feast. Demodocus sang all the songs. The red wine was flowing and the endless meat. But the whole time, Odysseus just sat there anxious. He sat there waiting for the sun to set. He was like a farmer who's been working the field all day and just can't wait for the sun to set so he can go home and have dinner. That's how Odysseus now was, just waiting and waiting for the sun to set so that he could go. And the sun set. And so he said, Phaeacians, now it's time to pour your libations and send me on my way. I have everything now that my heart has ever wanted. You are sending me on this safe passage, and I hope that I can come home, that I can see my wife and child again. And I hope that all you who are staying here, delight your wives, take care of your children. May no harm ever come to you, and every excellence. Wait. Don't you want to know what happens next? Don't you want to know if our hero makes it home? Yeah. Well, our hero made it home all right. Our hero, he came in disguise like a beggar. He came amidst all of the Ithacans, just like amidst all the Phaeacians. And they greeted him as a stranger. Sure, some of them were kind of mean to him, but he ate with them, he drank with them. They had contests. The last contest they had was the contest of the bow, and our hero, of course, he won. And then, bow and arrow still in hand, our hero launched one more arrow. And it hit a man who is just about to take a drink from a two-handled golden goblet. I mean, who thinks that they're going to get killed when they're at a feast? Who thinks that one man would do so much violence against a whole hall full of people? But that arrow went straight through the soft part of his neck. So he toppled over and kicked the table, so that all the food and drink spilled everywhere. It was covered in his blood. That's how he died. Now all the other men who were in the halls, who were wooing our hero's wife, they jumped back against the walls. They were startled. They thought it was an accident. They told him off. They said, "Stranger, what have you done here? You've shot one of our best young Ithacans. The gods will pay you back for that." And that's when our hero answered and said, "You dogs, not one of you thought that I would make it home from Troy. You have sat here, eating me out of house and home, wooing my wife, forcing the women to sleep with you. Now I do not think that one of you will escape death." Now one of the men who was in our hero's halls came forward and said, "Look, the man who was behind all of this, you already killed him. He was the one who told us to sit here to eat your food, to woo your wife. He's dead. And the rest of us, we will make it back to you. We will do anything we can. We will each give you 20 cattle. We will give you whatever it takes to make things right. We know we've been eating your food. We know we've done you harm, but spare us. We are your people. We are Ithacans." And our hero said, "Even if you gave me your whole inheritance, I would not let you go. Not one of you will escape death." So then one of the guys, realizing what was about to happen, tried to rush him with his sword, but our hero hit him with another arrow, right in the chest, next to the nipple. He fell down backwards, his forehead crushing on the ground. That's when our hero leapt into action. His son helped, and our hero's other men who were loyal to him. Athena raised the horrible aegis. Now, as the killing went on, now the men who were wooing our hero's wife ran through the halls like cattle stampeding when a lion comes after them. Now our hero and our hero's son, they went after them like hooked, clawed, long-beaked hawks going after a flock of starlings so that not one of the starlings escapes. There were men who begged for their lives. The seer came, begged for his life. Our hero killed him. He said, "If you saw anything, you saw this." The singer begged for his life, and our hero's son vouched for him and said, "Oh, and by the way, if the herald's not dead, maybe we should save him too. He was always nice to me." And so the herald and the singer, they got away, but they went and sat in the courtyard, terrified, still expecting to be murdered. That's when our hero looked around the halls to see if anyone was still alive, to see if someone might still be hiding under another corpse. But he saw them all lying there, the men who had wooed his wife, in piles, like when a fisherman draws up fish from the sea in well-woven nets and leaves them there to bake and die, gasp out their breath under the heat of the sun. That's how all the corpses were now lying, piles around the hall. And so our hero ordered them to bring out the women. Bring out the women so that they can clean all this up. They brought out the women, the ones especially who had slept with the men who had wooed our hero's wife. And they went through the halls, polishing all the silver tables and chairs with good sponges. They didn't want to do it, but they had to. They piled all the corpses out in the courtyard, dragging them one by one. Then they scraped the floor clean of blood and filth, took that out too. That's when our hero's son took all these women, the 12 women, out into the narrow space between the dome of the hall. And our hero's son didn't think they deserved a clean death, didn't think he should kill them with the sword. He took a line from the boat and he strung them up. It was like when long-winged thrushes come back to a bush to roost, but find instead the hunter's snare, not a very nice place to sleep. That's how the women were now, all hung, trapped in nooses. They struggled with their breath and kicked their feet for a little while, but not long. And then our hero and his son and his men went home because their work was done. Sorry to end on a downer. I want to send some thank yous. I want to thank the Montreal Storytelling Festival for inviting us to be part of their festival, which is amazing. I want to thank Tony and Bar de Pain for hosting us yet again at Happy Hour Homer. I want to thank Jennyfer Desbiens, who's been our stage manager. Emily Soussana and her whole tech crew has done all this amazing technology. Sam Windholz, who's filming, and Juana Rubio, who's doing the sound. And I want to give it up for Jimmy Blais, our director. And I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight and sitting through a very long night, especially those of you who came from out of town, including my parents. And please, before you go, if you had a good time, if you ate some food, if you want to make a donation, we're collecting for the Native Women's Shelter of Montreal. There are boxes up on the bar. And thank you all once again. Have a great night.